All right, thanks. Let's jump into it. Well, guys, thanks so much for being here tonight. My name is Joshua Scott, CEO, owner of Studio 88. We're dentistry's story-driven marketing agency. And man, got a fun topic for you tonight. Appreciate everybody jumping in. Andrew, David, Erica, John, Joe, Mark, Mike, Olga, Sheila, Sophia, Victoria, Yazid, Yvette. There's a lot of you just jumping on here. Appreciate you being a part of this and the Catapult community as well. This topic came up. I was actually talking to Shawnee, gosh, back in like October, I think, of last year, and was telling her about this kind of case study we had. And she said, man, that would make an amazing webinar for our community. So I'm here to talk about the $3 million startup. It's been a fun project for us over the last year and a half of documenting a client's journey who wanted to just take a really assertive approach to growing a startup practice. And so tonight we're going to talk through the marketing strategies behind what that would look like. Taking a startup from 0 to 3 million in 12 months. Is it even possible? Like, what does that look like? And so for us, this was a really fun, unique project. But what I want to start with tonight is why this conversation is important to begin with. And the big thing I want you to hear before we get too far into this is the point is not 3 million. The point is not whether you're even doing a startup. I think that there's a little shock value in that for sure. I'd be the first one to admit it. You know, it almost feels like maybe like some clickbait or something like how to grow a practice from 0 to 3 million, click here. And it's really not my intention with it. The fact is we're going to lay out an actual study, a case, a client that we've documented the entire time. And I think when you've got something that's so assertive at that scale, it's almost like marketing on steroids, like practice growth on steroids. It just magnifies everything. And so you begin to see the strategies that worked, where things broke down, principles that kind of surface within that timeline. And that's really my hope at the end of this is that you guys kind of walk away with, okay, there's some tools here that I can take away. There's some principles, whether maybe you're doing a startup and you're like, hey, I want to go to 1 million. Awesome. I think there's some really actionable stuff here for you. Maybe you're in an existing practice and you just want to, push the gas pedal down a little bit, kind of accelerate your growth. Maybe you're bringing on an associate and you're like, how do I control that growth? One of the things I've learned in the last couple decades of being around dental marketing, I've been in this now 22 years on the marketing side of dentistry. And it's too bad. It's really not a great situation, but like so many doctors, practice owners feel a sense, there's a loss of control when it comes to marketing. And it's probably the biggest thing. I don't know that anybody really says it like that. Like, I just don't feel like I have control over it. I don't know what's happening. I'm not even sure what's being done. I don't know what I'm spending money on. But at the end of it, at the root of it, I think that's really what's happening is we just experience this sense of we don't have control, like what is happening. And so my hope at the end of this is you've got some stuff to go, okay, we've got a roadmap here, we've got a path, we've got tools. Let's figure out how to make this happen. So this is Dr. Michael Pappas. He is the protagonist of the story here tonight, a current client of ours. But Dr. Pappas had previously started or purchased 2 practices, acquisitions before we got into this project. So I want to set the context for the stage. This wasn't a just out of nowhere, let's do a startup, let's put some, crazy number on it and just go for it. This was a entrepreneur owner who had 2 shots at acquiring practices, smaller practices, built them up, added ops, expanded them, got them into like a 14 to 15, 16 op practices. So built big practices around them. But by the time it came to his third, he said, all right, I think I want to do a startup. And I remember the first conversation I had with him, he said, look, startups are hard. You've got one impression on the community because you have zero patience, and all you really have at that point is your impression, it's your goodwill. And so you have zero patience and you're trying to change the perception of dentistry. And so on this first initial phone call, we actually were not his agency on the other two practices. And so when he called me, one of my first questions was, great, man, love the vision. Why don't you use your existing agency? And he just said flat out, I don't think they can do this. I think what they've done for the other acquisitions is adequate, but I need a partner that I can trust to help me move towards this vision. And so really kind of coming at the table with a bit of attention, a bit of tension, a bit of an unknown. Is there somebody out there that can help me accomplish this? And so he said, have you ever taken a startup from 0 to 3 million? And I said, no, like not at all. Had never done that. Uh, so I'm not going to BS him just to win business. So I said, look though, we could put together a strategy. Like I feel like I know how to get there, and I feel like I know our team can handle this task, and they would be excited about it. It'd be a really fun project. I was like, worst case, man, we're going to be transparent with you. We're going to be open in the communication. You're going to see what's working, what's not with the data and the metrics. Watch us adjust, and at the end of this, if you don't feel like this is working, like no, no big deal. But being able to be transparent with him and open about what was happening behind the scenes, the metrics, the Google Analytics dashboards, all that, I think made that decision a little bit easier to move forward. And so tonight we're going to look into this, the attempt to go from 0 to 3 million as a startup in revenue. This is a basic GP practice. No specialties in-house. No, it's not a pedo practice. Like there's nothing here that's maybe abnormal other than it's a larger practice. But what I want to do tonight is give you really the three keys to an effective marketing strategy that can scale 3 million or scale to meet your goals or be applied to meet your goals. And so I'll tell you tonight, if you got questions, throw them in the chat. I've got it open here in front of me, so I can see that happening. So if we got questions, throw them in as you go. My plan is to leave about 10 minutes at the end of the presentation, answer some questions if they're out there. Even if you just want to give me a thumbs up, like, yo, good point, Josh. Feeling that, man. I'll see it. I appreciate that. So tonight, that's the plan. Our team looked at this project from a big picture, comprehensive standpoint and said, what do we really think were the keys here? Like, what are the things where if we were to walk away and said, do these, make sure you hit these three things, it'll get you on that path. That's what I want to share with you guys tonight. And so we'll jump into it here. But number one is building an authentic brand. Building an authentic brand. So number one is the foundation of everything we're going to do moving forward. And one of the things that I probably have been a little bit different coming into the marketing space in dentistry because my approach hasn't been, it wasn't like SEO first. It wasn't digital ads first. The last 22 years, I would tell you probably far and away, the number one problem I see with dental marketing is this question right here. What's the story? Marketing, if we think about it at its very base form, marketing is communication. It is magnifying a message. And so if there's a message there, we can magnify that. We can get attention for it. If there's not, and we're just kind of waving our hands trying to get attention, and then people are like, what? And there's nothing there, that's where marketing begins to break down. And so even, gosh, 20 years ago when I was in the space, I'd have clients come to me and say, hey, Josh, the Yellow Page guy is here. He wants to know what we want on our Yellow Page ad, right? Hey, the direct mail person, they want to know what 3 offers we want and what we want to say on what picture we want to use on the postcard. And what I've often watched is marketing typically starts down the road a bit too far. Like we're trying to answer the what around it. Okay, so like we're in yellow pages, we're in direct mail. What do we put on those pieces? What do we say? It's a very simple question. What's the message? What's the story? And so a lot of times my first approach with clients is, hey, we're going to back up. It's going to feel like we're taking a step back, but we're going to define the message. We're going to clarify that, because after that, everything else, the investment we're making is just maximized. The clarity is there. Today, I had a call with a mid-sized group, about 13, 15 practices in the New York, New Jersey area, downtown Manhattan, Hoboken, Jersey City, kind of all in that region. And the conversation today, it was about an hour long. It was about whether or not they needed a logo. And because they've kind of existed without one, it's just kind of been like a font treatment with the name of the practice. And based on how they want to scale and grow, I said, guys, like an icon, it's a shape, it's something that's sticky. People, patients, they're going to respond to that. It's going to stick with them. It's going to become part of that brand that's played out, that's told in their mind as part of that story. And so their response was, okay, they're tracking with me. And the owner says, okay, but Josh, how long is this going to take? And I said, look, developing a good logo, it's probably 6, 8 weeks for a group this size and the magnitude of what we're talking about. And it wasn't like a physical pushback, but you can kind of just see them like, lower their head and like, man, okay, that's a long time. And I just came back to them. I said, guys, this is a 10 to 20 year decision that we're talking about right now. We're talking about clarifying the message, creating the story so that we have optimal marketing investment down the road. A 10 to 20 year decision, we can take 4, 6, 8 weeks to figure that out and make sure that we've got it locked in, that it's the best decision. And so sometimes it feels like taking a step back, but really it's moving the whole thing forward faster as we go on. Dr. Pappas said, we needed to be able to build a brand that told the patient, maybe you haven't been to the dentist in a long time, but we're here to help you. We're not going to judge. We're not going to scare you. We welcome everyone. And so from that, our team built this tagline, smiles for everyone, around their practice. And it became kind of a rallying cry. We had them work through some discovery, some homework, just trying to figure out the values, the mission of the practice, what he saw in this. And this kind of concept surfaced to the top, smiles for everyone. It encapsulated what he wanted to say, how they wanted to be welcoming to the community. This was a practice. It's in Central Ohio, the Columbus area. It's actually one of these edge locations. He did all the demographic research, but it's kind of on the edge of a growing suburban population. So we know we can kind of anchor that within that community. But yet the other side of it is almost it's rural. So you've got this like suburban community to anchor the practice in, but you also have access to a rural community that we know will drive, up 30 minutes, 60 minutes for a good practice. And so placing it there was very strategic, but also the messaging in, hey, we're here for everyone. And you can actually see that in this slide. It's actually a shot of his building, incorporating that tagline throughout the building as well. Smiles for everyone begins here. I want to show you this video of Dr. Pappas actually talking about that process.
If you truly are doing a startup, I have to believe that you have a vision, right? You have this internal feeling of why you're doing it, right? Why you don't want to buy something and you want to do it on your own. Going in, I didn't have the vision fully crafted. We knew kind of what that was, but we couldn't articulate it. And when we went through the process with your team, it came out and we're like, oh my gosh, like it was so simple. It was there right before our eyes, but we couldn't define it and you helped us define it. Through the questionnaires, through the phone calls, and then starting to get into it. And you guys pressed us a little bit like, hey, we got to define this in these ways. If you didn't do that, we wouldn't have done it ourselves. I mean, that's just the reality. We're good at a lot of things in discipline, but some of that was not on our radar.
Yeah. We love our startups for exactly that reason. I tell the team it's not just about marketing a dental practice. This is coming alongside an entrepreneur who has a vision, who has a dream, and helping them like visualize that and articulate that. And so we feel like that's part of our responsibility and our role in that process. So not only taking this brand as kind of a top line, tagline, like, okay, smiles for everyone, sounds cool, it's going to get clicks, but also building it out through the facility and creating that consistency, space that says we're welcoming, that says we're non-judgmental, that says you can be confident here. It's crazy because even you think about just even light fixtures in a new build, a new startup like this can communicate things like warmth and trust and confidence and welcome. And so not only just building, saying we're building a brand authentically, but actually implementing it throughout every stage of the project, including the interior design. Uh, my other kind of sub point here is I want to talk about the digital experience for a little bit. That's another key point of building an authentic brand. And I think this conversation, when we're talking about digital experiences, if we're still talking about websites, I really think that conversation is 5 to 10 years old, to be honest. I just want to stand up and kind of like raise my hand and go, hey, if we're still talking about websites, I think we're really missing the main point here. Really, since COVID, I feel like there's been an evolution, almost like 5 to 10 years ago, 15 years. Websites were like a Gen 1, Gen 2. Put your digital brochure up, talk to the bots, right? Score well on Google. That was all the thing. Now I really feel like we're talking about an evolution of that to where really it's a web experience is what we're building. And I think even that slight shift will help you think about it frames that project in a different light because really what we're trying to do is go, okay, there's the physical experience of what patients are going to experience when they come into the practice, whether it's routine or whether it's as a new patient. How can we get as close to that as we can in the digital space? Like, how can we represent that to where there's not a disconnect? They either see something that's really bad online and they disconnect and never contact us, or they see something that they think is great, but then they come in and have a different experience that disconnects as well. It's really that authenticity of the brand that we're talking about is replicating that. How do we create a digital experience, a web experience that matches that they would experience physically in the practice? 75% of users make judgments about a company's credibility based on visual design alone. This study's out of Stanford. There's lots of studies like this. I kind of just want to put a couple up because we kind of know this. We kind of hate this, but we kind of know this. The fact that like I could tell you, look, a patient is going to come into the practice and based on the waiting room and the way they were greeted and pulling into the parking lot, they're going to make judgments about your clinical competency. Like they just are. So we know this, we hate it, we do, but it's the same thing with your web experience. Patients are going to make judgments about your practice, the business, the team, the clinical competency based on visual design alone. We can keep fighting this, or we can realize, yo, 75% of people are a lot of the percentage. So why don't we maybe talk to them first? Uh, Going back to my phone call today with that group, it was really interesting. One of the conversations around it was I said it was a conversation about 10 years down the road and a potential sell opportunity. And I said, I don't know if you've thought about this, but you building an intentional, well-crafted, authentic brand now is going to be a big factor down the road when you actually take this to market and you've got investment firms coming to you with bids and with interest. And I said, it was the same concept. We know that a patient sees a website and actually can judge a practice clinically by the website. VCs and investors are going to look at this brand and judge your ability to as an operator based on what you've built. Meaning, if you build a really good brand that's intentional, it's authentic, and they're like, oh, yeah, he knows how to build a brand. He must be a good operator. like that same thing happens. And so it's not just you, it's not just in dentistry, like a phenomenon in dentistry. This is the world. This is how humans operate. And then 94% of users' first impressions of healthcare websites were design related. And this came out of a human factors report, which I love that whole field, human factors engineering. It's because it's really about how humans interact with digital spaces and creating less friction and efficiency and habits and studying those. And so they basically said, okay, give them 100 or give them healthcare websites and ask them first impressions. 94% of those responses are going to be visual design related. So, if we show them healthcare websites, they're going to go, oh, I didn't like that photo. Oh, the team was smiling. That was fun. Oh, that button was too small. I couldn't see the map. Like, was there even a map or was there a phone number? So it's all going to be design related, those first impressions. I say we stop fighting that and actually think about that experience. Is it user friendly? Is it a great, we call it a UX experience, that user experience? Are we thinking about it from that perspective? So this is Grove City Smiles website. You can see the video integration there right from the start. There's some animations that are happening very subtly. Buttons are moving, things are shifting. Again, more video kind of built in if you want to learn more. Smiles for everyone tagline. You'll notice the simplicity of the copy. We're trying to communicate more through images, very clear directional buttons. And then obviously one of the most important things with a dental practice is contacting them and location and how to do that. Another part of this digital web experience are these apps that we integrate, like online scheduling here. Whether it's patient forms, chat, online scheduling. Again, we're kind of filtering this through the digital experience, right? And how do we make it convenient for patients? And how do we make that happen? If they can book an appointment in the office, I think we should be able to, allow them to book an appointment online as well. And what was interesting with Dr. Pappas is, man, he fought me on online scheduling for a while. He said, Josh, we have really efficient ops and online scheduling creates chaos. So, which I understand what he's saying. I know what he's getting at. But then we realized month one, we're looking at all the digital ad patients calling in, and he was missing 22% of the phone calls coming in evenings, weekends, voicemail. And to be honest, 22% is not high. That's a relatively it's lower. Typically, I see most practices are going to be somewhere between 30 to 40%. Routinely, I see this. Phone calls being missed at night and on the weekends and going to voicemail. And so when he realized that, and we saw the cost of acquisition for new patients like way higher than we thought, because you're wasting 22% of your budget at that point, then he said, all right, all right. He actually tried to solve this with 2 call answering services. Didn't love those. He felt like it just wasn't, they couldn't replicate that experience and the culture, the values, all that. And so he finally said, all right, we're going to implement this. My team's going to hate me, but we're going to implement this. And I think the first weekend they got 4 new patient appointments over the weekend without having to do anything. And he was like, all right. I see what you mean here. So yeah, point number one here, big picture, is really taking the time to figure out your brand, build an authentic brand, and making sure that that's consistently portrayed, communicated, and implemented throughout the practice. Step one of this webinar tonight. Number two is then the advertising strategy. So when Dr. Pappas came to me, he said, we're a startup. We need a solid, authentic brand. I also need performance metrics. I need the marketing to perform. And so often in dentistry, we end up, I think, over the last couple of decades, just my experience is we're usually choosing one or the other when it comes to agencies and partners. Either they're going to create a really great brand, and it's like, hey, great photography, beautiful websites, or they're going to put up a website and they're like, I know it's not awesome, but it's really talking to Google the way Google wants it to, and it's going to score high. The problem is patients get on that one and they don't feel like they're being connected to a human. They feel like it's cold, it's sterile, it's clinical, it's robotic. The problem with the other one is nobody can find it. So we've kind of put ourselves in these like, well, which do you want? A beautiful website that nobody can find, or a website that doesn't look great, but hey, Google thinks it's awesome. We're now kind of in a place, some of this is Google's algorithm changes, some of this is just the evolution of marketing agencies, but I really feel like we can create and deliver the best of both worlds. And so this was the conversation with him. Let's create the brand first, and then let's work on the advertising strategy. So the first sub point here is I would say the conversation was, hey, we're going to do something comprehensive, but it's also going to be assertive. Dr. Pappas really wanted to kind of throw the kitchen sink at it, like do all the things. And so there was a direct mail campaign within the first couple months. Startups still use this. I don't really enjoy seeing, I don't know, direct mail is the best play unless you're a startup. His perspective on it was really interesting though. He said, I don't think there's a better way to make an announcement to a community than with direct mail. And I was like, I think that that's actually really well said. Like, I like that. I think you're right. A startup doing a direct mail campaign, it's really about making an announcement to the community. And I don't know if there's a better medium for that. And so I think if you're looking at it that way, I think it could be a valuable play as part of the strategy. He was definitely getting new patients from it. Their higher acquisition cost. I think these patients were $600, $700, even $800 to get a new patient through direct mail. So they're a bit pricey. And in the end, you kind of get this almost like saturation effect where you start getting all the new patients as you're sending, but then at some point it plateaus and then begins to decline. SEO was a consideration we talked about. He knew early on getting on the first page of Google as a startup is just it's typically not going to happen unless it's an anomaly. It's an outlier. Websites take time to build credibility with Google. However, I told him, if you are a startup and SEO is ultra important to you, the best thing you can do is name your practice after the city. Like that may be the one takeaway that is the most valuable to you here tonight. It just is. Like Grove City smiles. When people are searching for Grove City dentist, you instantly have an advantage. Google will tell you that it doesn't because I think they're kind of supposed to say that. Other agents, they may tell you, other experts will tell you, oh, no, no. But the fact is, all the data we see, it absolutely affects that. So if you have a more branded name, XYZ Dental, it's going to take more time. It's not that you can't get on the first page. You can do it. It just takes more time. So a lot of my conversations with startups is, hey, if SEO is like one of your top two strategies, I would name the practice, like put the name of the city, get it in there somehow, because that's what people are searching for. So reviews played a big role. He did a soft launch early on. As soon as that Google business profile goes live, asking friends and family, doing a soft launch, asking everybody to leave reviews, just getting that populated as soon as possible, having an automated response to just get those reviews coming in like clockwork. Google sees that as authenticity and verifies those listings moving forward.
Walk me through like that strategy of going, okay, we want this practice to really take off from the start. What were some of those big marketing strategies?
We looked at it as like a subscription service. That's how we look at the new patient game. The quicker we get them into hygiene, the quicker we capture them, and we have recurring revenue over time.
Yeah.
So we were willing to go very aggressive early on
Yeah.
to obtain that patient. Then we looked at, okay, how do we get in front of them, right? Top of mind. So mailers, the digital, we do things in the community as well, right? Like it's kind of fun because I grew up playing sports, but like we got the football field,
Okay.
we got the baseball diamond, we sponsor like the the high school baseball gala. So we do things in the community too. So it's a comprehensive approach. It's not just one thing, but digital definitely dominates the day.
You talked about hygiene as a subscription model, which I love, because the most valuable companies right now, I mean, they're SaaS products, they're subscription products, right? Investors want companies that have subscription because it's recurring revenue. I don't know that a lot of people look at dentistry like that. When did that kind of occur to you?
Practice 2, we started to realize it because in the first 2 practices we really had to grow them, right? We had to obtain patients. It was hard, but once we had them, it was easy because we knew we had a good product. So we, going into the startup, we're like, well, we can bleed for 3 years, or we can accelerate this thing, right, in the first 12 months, which ended up paying off, and it worked.
Yeah.
You know, it was a hypothesis that worked.
Yeah. No, I love it. And there's so much here, because I think when you shift your thinking like that, then the goal is get as many in as possible, because you're starting those subscriptions. And you would see like a Netflix or a streaming service, right? Like at the beginning when they launch, it's Disney Plus. Get as many subscribers as possible, because you're kickstarting that subscription platform. So getting these new patients in, you're considering, okay, I'm going to spend X, but you're considering the lifetime kind of long-term ROI of a subscription model and leveraging that against it.
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole theory, and it works as long as you have a good product and you make the patient happy.
All right, so the other point here I want to talk about is the digital advertising campaigns. This was really the big bulk of the strategy, and I would tell you, if there was a number one key here in all this is it right here. You can't go from 0 to 3 million, 0 to 2 million. I don't even know that you can go from 0 to 1 million without leveraging digital ad campaigns of some sort. Google, Facebook, Instagram. I was thinking about this today as I was preparing for it. I think, honestly, in the last 10 years, the practices that have gone from 0 to 1 million without using digital ad campaigns were probably all pedo practices. Just in a saturated area, suburban area, they just take off and they just grow. I think most other ones that I've seen go from 0 to 1 million or more really leverage digital ads. And so as we kind of get into this section, it really becomes the number one key. And I'm going to show some of our interview here, let Dr. Pappas talk about, and then we're going to get into some graphs, help you maybe take that mystery out of what digital ads should be doing and actually how they work.
So we're talking about 40,000 per month, because sometimes even when I tell people this, they're like, you're talking about like 40,000 overall, and I'm like, no, it's 40,000 every month. So I think we started there officially. But give me like why, because that's a big number. Like we're routinely talking to clients about 1,500 a month, and they're like, well, what's the return that I'm going to get for that, right? So you're starting at 40 grand, like that's a whole different mindset. Tell me about that.
So the way we built the practice is we truly can treat almost every patient, unless medically compromised. There's some cases we say no to, right? Yeah. But we know, hey, we can harness this. So then it became this question of, all right, how does Google Ads work? It's simple. It's bidding. This is just, who has the bigger war chest?
Yeah.
To an extent, yeah. Right? So we knew like, hey, we could dominate digitally and block out a lot of other practices if we just went hard in the beginning, okay. Right? We want to be at the top of the page every single time because we have capacity. Mm-hmm. If we didn't, we wouldn't. But it works. It works. I'm now everyone out there can just go and employ this strategy, but I don't know if everyone also has the war chest to do it.
Or the guts to do it.
Oh yeah, because in the beginning, like it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Like you take losses, you take L's early on this, right? Like because you're spending the money, the patients are getting booked. Even if they get booked right away, some of that treatment doesn't show up for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
But the snowball effect happens.
Yeah.
And then you start really harnessing the value of each patient that you've got, and it offsets the marketing costs. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, we spent 40 grand a month, but guess what? Like percentage wise, it's really low now, and we're very cash flow positive.
All right, so fun stuff. Here's the first graph I'll throw out here to you. Google ad spend. So you heard me say we started at 40,000 a month. And that's the shock value right there. Like, what? 40,000 a month in Google ads alone? And the answer is yes. When he came to me and said, basically he wanted to open with about 175 new patients month one and go from there. And so in my mind, in my experience, I told him, I said, hey, this is going to be a big ad spend. And he's like, yeah, I'm planning on it. In my head, it was probably about 25,000 is where I was going to go in at. He came to me and said, I think we should start at 40. And so we had a conversation of just kind of reverse engineering that. What's interesting about this graph is you can see, if you're anything like me, you're probably looking at like, well, what's that big dip about in the beginning? We started about halfway through February with the $40,000 ad spend, or two-thirds of the way through February. So you can see it just kind of ramps up. And then it escalates from there. It started at 40. The next month it went to 50. Then all of a sudden, so for about 60 days, we're running this aggressive ad campaign. And then he gets about 6 weeks of patients booked up. So then he messages the team, hey, pull the ad spend back. So you see it drop there in about April to May to around 30,000. And at this time, to give you some context, he built a 16 op practice. He outfitted it with 6 ops to start with. So the marketing budget ramps up. He gets booked 6 weeks out with patients and says, hold on, let's back this off. And he pulls the trigger on outfitting the other 5 more ops. Okay. So then you can actually see what happens is in the marketing budget starts ramping back up. And so in June, July, now we've got capacity with the 5 extra ops. It starts going again. New patients get booked out again, 6 weeks, kind of decrease the spend there a little bit, plateaus. And then he says, all right, a month or two into that, he says, okay, I'm going to outfit the last 5 ops. So kind of went from like 6 to 16 within about a period of 4 to 5 months. Built those out. And then again, you can see the correlation in December where the spend goes up again to fill those ops. Once it does, which was like right away, it backs off. And our team basically, the 40, he hovers at about 46, 48,000 a month right now. And really that's a function of making sure that that new patient flow stays at a point where they are booked about 2 to 3 weeks out on new patients and doctors' schedules are full. It takes about that much a month to accomplish that with 5 doctors and 9 hygienists. And so that's kind of where we land. Total new patients, you'll see here, month one, 131 new patients. And then it began to increase from that up to 250, almost hitting 300 in February. Year one, first 12 months, 2,777 total new patients. You'll see the cost of acquisition here. Again, in the beginning, those first couple of months, it was $400 or $500 to get a new patient in until we realized we're missing 25%, 22% of the phone calls. Once we solved that, and we've got an answer rate of about 98, 99%, now we're maximizing every single dollar invested. And you can see that acquisition costs got as low as about 150. It hovers between 180 and 250 on a regular basis, 240. That's a pretty standard average across the country. And so unless you're in like a urban super center, like a New York, Chicago, San Francisco, something like that, this is a pretty standard metric. Meaning if you're investing in Google, you should be getting a new patient for about $180 to $250. If you're not, if you're not into it, you're like, hey, I spent $2,000 last month and got 2 new patients. We need to begin to troubleshoot why. What's the missed call volume? How are calls being answered? Because this is a pretty baseline metric. And most digital agencies would tell you this. It's kind of the gold standard of what they're shooting for. And then last one on the Google ads here, this was estimated new patient revenue. So what we did was the average new patient was spending $1,400 within that first year of being with the practice. So the amount of new patients times $1,400. So you can see this graph, 120,000 the first month was the new patient revenue, but almost peaking at, 360, 380,000. And I guess here's one thing I just kind of want to put out there is the game here. Okay, so like let's say he invested 50,000, 60,000 in marketing in February 2023, but he got back 360. How many of you guys would play that game? right? Give me 60,000, I'll give you back 360,000. We all would. And that's the playing the game of getting the return on the investment, understanding the formulas, understanding what Google's meant to do, the free market bid system and how that operates. You can leverage that to get a return. And so, look, I'm the first one to say, give me 60,000. That takes some guts. That really does. It absolutely does. That's why most of us don't do it. But if we knew that that was a formula, we put it in, we get it out, most of us would take advantage of that.
So we just kind of looked at the practice. We're like, how many patients can we handle? And then we were like, okay, let's do the math on it. Okay. We know, hey, if it costs, we even like, we're pretty conservative. Like, hey, if it's $250 per patient, how many patients do we want? Let's figure out the budget on this. We backed out of all of that. And we're like, how many can we handle a day? You know, one hygienist, two hygienists, one doctor, another doctor, and we just kept ramping it from there.
So you just reversed engineered that. Take a conservative number, like what if we're going to spend $250 a patient and we need 100 patients a month? That's $25,000. That's real objective. Yep. And that's just how you looked at it.
And then we track on the flip side, we track like, all right, we had this many new patients. What did we produce off of that? Yeah. Right? To make sure that we're doing our side of it. Because if we're not able to treat those patients, then we got to go back to you guys and be like, look, these patients that came in off what we think were these ads, like we can't, there's no value there, right? Like, let's get rid of those ads and focus on this type of patient.
Yeah, okay.
So then just a couple other graphs here showing you basically what we just talked about was the Google campaigns. These are the Facebook, Instagram campaigns. This is a chart of impressions. I don't hang my hat too much on impressions, especially on social media, where people are just kind of scrolling by. However, you know, this is people seeing your logo, seeing your branded content. And so, you know, if we look at this here, like February 2023, over 1 million people in that month saw content from Grove City Smiles on social media. So you also can't discount that, right? Like, it's not all wasted. It's not all unattentive. There's definitely some value there. When you correlate that with the actual ad spends, so if you look at this graph, they ramped it up in the beginning about 2,000 a month and went up to, 4,200. Now it lives somewhere around 3,800 a month. But, you go back to that February 2023. If I told you, like, give me $4,000 and I'll make sure 1 million people see your content, that right there, we overlook that and we actually discount that. We discount the power of social media. We're like, oh, those impressions, people are scrolling by them. Sure. Not 1 million people, though. We can't discount 1 million people for $4,000. And so some of this is thinking through that. Okay, Facebook is meant to just show people impressions, branded content. What do we think about 1 million people seeing our content this month for $4,000? I just feel like that's a deal you should do any day of the week. And then when we even look at this one, put it with it, the amount of clicks to the website. Google, so that we understand campaigns, Google is meant to drive conversions to new patients. We give it a budget, people call, we get new patients in. Facebook and Instagram, if we look at it the same way, we're missing the mark. Facebook and Instagram are meant to drive visitors to the website. It doesn't mean they're going to convert to new patients because they weren't looking to. They're scrolling on Facebook and Instagram. They're not like, oh, I need a dentist and I'm scrolling. They're just enjoying their time. They see your branded content. It sticks out. It's interesting. They're like, okay, I didn't know that was a dentist. They click on it. Now they're at your website. So again, let's go back to February. For $4,000, we drove 3,000 unique visits to the website. It's almost like 3,000 people walking by the front of your practice. If you think about it like that, 1 million people saw the content, 3,000 of those clicked on it and actually visited the website. Again, they're not all going to convert. And sometimes that's on us, the discipline to have patience, but you're stacking up visitors to the website that have a good experience and are like, wow, I didn't know this was a dentist. If I'm in need, so 8 months later, 12 months later, 15 months later, when all of a sudden they're like, I need a dentist, they reach out to you because they remember that experience that they had. And so thinking through campaigns in that sense. Google, man, we just got to drive new patients in. Facebook, Instagram, let's drive visitors to the site to have a good experience, knowing they will convert down the road. So, number two, the advertising strategy. And then last, and I'll wrap up here in just a few minutes, is the last point here is scaling and adjusting. Obviously, growing this fast creates issues. And one of the challenges, honestly, when you're being this aggressive and assertive, is adapting with the growth, being able to create capacity, grow, create more capacity, grow. So these guys, like I said, went from 6 ops to 11 ops to 16 ops, went from, I believe, 4 hygienists to 5 hygienists to 9 hygienists, 2 doctors to 3 doctors to 5 doctors over that course of the year. And Dr. Pappas would tell you himself that just that part of it, continuing to create capacity, was one of the biggest challenges through that time.
So give me the feeling in December of 2022 when you're realizing we're going to be at 2.2 for the end of the first 8 months.
Anxiety.
Okay.
So we were so overbooked, and we were trying to like expand hours, doing anything we can to get patients in. So we knew we just had this like massive influx of patients. We were trying to get team members and physical space. So we had just went from 5 to 10 ops in October of 2022.
Yeah.
And we started to build out the next 6 ops, and we're trying to like scramble to get that done as quick as possible. We're hitting delays. That didn't happen until March. So while it was awesome, the hardest part at that point was, how do we build the team and the space to meet the demand? Going into it, it was more like a demand problem, right? Like, are we gonna have enough patients? What does this look like? Well, that wasn't the issue anymore. The issue was, can we scale quick enough to meet that demand? I mean, hiring enough team members to fill 16 ops in essentially 12 months is very difficult.
Yeah.
Building out that many ops and not having issues and maintaining the culture and the standard is a very, very difficult thing to actually execute on.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like you realize you got a little lightning in a bottle happening.
Yeah. You gotta harness it.
Yeah,
you gotta harness
I'll say, well, that comes with its own set of issues,
Yeah.
right?
So last was just making campaign adjustments. As we went along the way, sometimes there would be new patients would be full, but he would have just hired a doctor or two, so we had free doctor time. So what do we do? Maybe emergency campaigns. Maybe doctor time was full. We need more higher revenue procedures. Let's focus on the ads on dental implants or Invisalign. But overall, one of the things you're really trying to do that I hope you walk away with tonight is create a digital ad formula. Really, it's this progression of looking at, okay, what's the investment we're making? Let's just look at a month. How many clicks does that generate? How many calls or appointments does that lead to through like an online booking? How many new patients actually come in? And then what's the production from those new patients? And so if we're looking at this, let's just take like 1,500 a month. These are pretty rough numbers, but they're not far off. It should generate you about 90 clicks to the website, people visiting the site. It typically is going to result in somewhere 25, 30 phone calls, appointment requests through forms or the app. I think you probably are going to plan on seeing about 7, maybe 8 new patients from that. Some of that, that number is going to vary based on phone skill. It just is. If you've got a superstar at the front desk who can get anybody in, you might get 8 or 9. If you've got somebody that's average, it might be 6 or 7. And if you've got somebody that's really not doing a great job, it may be 2, 3, 4. So that number can fluctuate for sure. And then those 7 patients produced $8,200. And so we end up with an acquisition cost of, if you spent $1,500 and got 7, it costs $215 to acquire a new patient through Google. The average return on that investment is they each spend about $1,200. So is that a good deal? $1,500, you get $8,200 back. Most of us would say yes. I think though, like what if it was 2 new patients? Okay, and you got $2,400 back. Is that still a good deal? And I think that's a conversation, because I think some of you initially would say, well, no, because you need like a 3 to 4x on your marketing. And while I would agree, I would also say this was revenue generated from the new patient appointment. What if we came back 18 months, 24 months later and talked about kind of total revenue over that time? It would be higher. And I think we could also then even factor in referrals, like how many of these patients that come in are actually then referring other patients, factor that in and get kind of like this more longer term metric. I'll bet two patients, like if you said, give me $1,500, I'll give you two new patients, that's still a decent deal in light of all that. But this Google can perform much better than that.
I know that I think current day as we sit here, that budget's a little bit higher. I want to say it's at 48.
It's probably in the 50s now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've added some stuff. It's somewhat fluid. It's not like every month it's really shifting gears. You've got like probably the 80% of it that's like solid. We've got it dialed in. You mentioned you could put some emergency stuff in there, shift to that. There's a dental implant budget. How have you, as it's gone, in your mind, what's been the strategy to kind of diversify that and put it in different areas?
Looking at like who we have on the team and where we need that. So we ramped up hygienists. Like we went from, what did we go from? 4.5 to 9 in less than 2 months. We were like, we need new patients. We need good patients for hygiene.
You like legit need new patients.
Yeah. It was weird because we hired 2 and then like 2 came in through like referrals of employees. And they were really good team members. And our thing is we never say no to like good people.
Yeah.
We will bring you on, we will make it work.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh shit, like I have all this hygiene capacity, we gotta pivot. So then, we've been kind of venturing out into like some specialty services, implants, IV sedation, which is a really cool thing that we've gotten into. So we've kind of said, hey, let's start the budget here. Like let's throw, $1,500 a week at this thing. Let's track it. Let's see how many patients we're getting. Are we filling sedation schedules? And if we are, we can expand the number of days of sedation, and then we can expand that budget. So a little bit of it's trial and error.
Yeah.
You got to like pay attention to it, but it's cool because when you track that data and you see it, you can make better informed decisions and you feel in control of it.
Yeah.
That helplessness feeling we were talking about goes away really quick.
Yeah, no, you're.
And so a couple of just last graphs here. We can tell here new patients got full, but you've got capacity with doctors, right? So we shifted a large portion of the budget over to emergency campaigns, just getting patients in, generating production. And then this is a little bit later in the campaign after the 1 year mark, but you can see shifting then some of that to dental implants, trying to create more high revenue procedures as doctors settle in and some of them want to focus more on surgical and placing implants. Then creating an onboarding process for that as well. So principle 3 was scaling and adjusting. Guys, the results. So basically the first 12 months, April of 2022 through March of 2023, Grow City Smiles finished at 3.2 million gross revenue for the practice. And what I think is even a little bit crazier that I wasn't anticipating was first calendar year. So all of 2023, January through December of 2023, they produced 5.4 million gross revenue at or near full capacity at that point. So some closing observations here. The strategy, again, you've got to have a really authentic, strong brand. You have to build something that's going to scale like this. You also have to have the performance marketing with it and the metrics and the analytics to go. And then last, just scaling and adjusting, growing this assertively, it just creates problems. You're going to have to like make adjustments, create capacity to continue the growth. At the beginning, I told you 3 million is not the point. Being a startup's not the point. I don't care if you just want to go to 1 million. I mean, look, I would be the first to tell you going from 0 to 3 million, I would not recommend this to most people, if hardly anybody. It creates a world of problems. You think a startup that doesn't grow fast enough, that creates a world of problems. It's just a different world. Like it's just different planets. They're completely different problems. So I'm not sitting here telling you go from 0 to 3 million, but I think what we can do is pull tools, pull formulas that can then be applied at smaller scales, at larger scales to really work for us. And then last, if I had to tell you there was one key here, it's really mindset. It really is. You're going to take some L's. You got to look at this as an investment. You got to look at this long term. You got to know there's going to be some days and some months you're going to see some numbers. They're going to make your stomach turn. You're going to wonder what's going on. But in the end, if you can build marketing where you experience a sense of control, that's the ideal situation. And then I'll leave you with this advice from Dr. Pappas.
If we had 3 or 4 startup docs here that were just on the precipice of that, what would you like? What's your advice to somebody thinking about that?
You have to have thick skin. You got to understand that marketing is an investment. Okay, just like building your facility is.
Yeah.
You're going to have to put money into it. You're going to have losses for a little bit. You're going to have to sacrifice. You have to have patience with your team and the practice, but you have to market. You have to market. If you don't have patience, none of the rest of it matters. This isn't just like magically they just walk in the door, you know, you hang the shingle. Like if you can't prioritize that with a chunk of money, whether it's from the bank or you save it in your associateship, then you probably shouldn't do the startup. If you can prioritize having a chunk of cash, we call it the war chest, you can do a startup. And we did it, you know, as practice 3.
Yeah.
So it was nice because we had 2 practices making us money. We had a war chest. We knew we were going in really, really hard.
Yeah.
I think docs need to be prepared. If you're doing a startup, start saving your money. Understand the bank will give you working capital, but they're not going to probably fund all of it. Get it ready so when you hit the ground, you have that marketing budget ready to go. Because the bigger the marketing budget, the quicker your practice goes to $2 million.
Guys, I appreciate you being here. My name again, Joshua Scott with Studio 88. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram at Joshua Scott. It's probably the best place to reach out. I'm still in that account. Tell me you saw this. Give me a shout out. I'll definitely respond to you. You can also visit sae8.com to learn more about us. It was a pleasure hanging with you tonight.